The afternoon sky wept as though it knew what was happening. Rain fell in sheets across Pine Grove Cemetery, where a small crowd huddled under black umbrellas. Among them stood Renee Hudson, her face a mask of composure that belied the hurricane of grief within her. Her hands clutched a framed photo of her son, Liam, his 16-year-old smile forever frozen in time. "We gather today to remember Liam Hudson," the pastor's voice carried across the somber gathering. "Taken from us too soon but forever in our hearts." Renee barely heard the words. Her mind kept replaying the knock on her door 3 nights ago. The police officers with removed hats, their faces grim as they delivered news no parent should ever hear. A car accident on Ridge Road, no survivors. The vehicle had gone over the embankment and burst into flames. The mahogany casket before her remained closed. The damage was extensive, they had explained gently at the funeral home. It would be better to remember him as he was. They assured her the dental records confirmed it was him.
Her Liam, her only child.
Her whole world. Beside her stood her brother-in-law, Dale, his hand occasionally squeezing her shoulder in silent support. Her husband had passed away 3 years earlier from cancer, and now her son was gone too. The universe had taken everything from her. Would anyone like to share a memory of Liam? The pastor asked, his voice pulling Renee back to the present. A tall boy with shaggy hair stepped forward, Liam's best friend since kindergarten. "Liam was the bravest person I knew," he began, voice cracking. "Remember when Old Man Wilson's house caught fire last summer? Liam ran in before the firefighters even arrived because he knew the old man's dog was still inside." He paused, swallowing hard. That was Liam, always thinking of others first. Renee nodded, the memory vivid. She'd been furious with him for putting himself in danger, but secretly so proud of his courage. That was her boy. Headstrong, impulsive, but with a heart as big as the sky. More friends came forward, sharing stories that brought brief smiles through tears. His track coach spoke of Liam's determination. His science teacher recalled his brilliant mind and curiosity. Each memory was a knife twisting deeper into Renee's heart. When it was her turn to speak, Renee stood on legs that threatened to buckle. The short walk to the front felt like miles. She unfolded a paper with shaking hands, then looked up at the faces watching her. "I had a whole speech written," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, about what a wonderful son Liam was, how he filled our home with laughter, how he'd leave silly notes in my lunch bag even though he was a teenager and it wasn't cool. She paused, looking down at her prepared words. Then she folded the paper and tucked it away. "But words feel hollow right now. What I want you all to know is that being Liam's mother was the greatest privilege of my life. Every day, every moment, even the difficult ones when he was testing boundaries or staying out past curfew." A sad smile crossed her face, especially those times because that was him living, growing, becoming the incredible young man you all knew. Rain drummed against umbrellas as she continued. "The last thing Liam said to me was later, Mom," as he headed out the door. "Not goodbye, just later. And somehow that feels right, because this isn't goodbye. Not really, not as long as we remember him." She returned to her place as murmurs of support rippled through the gathering. The ceremony continued with prayers and songs, but Renee felt disconnected from it all, as though watching from a great distance. Only when they began lowering the casket did reality crash back with brutal force. A sound escaped her that didn't seem human, and Dale's arm wrapped firmly around her shoulders, keeping her upright. After the burial, everyone gathered at Renee's house. The rooms filled with hushed conversations and the clink of dishes as neighbors brought food no one really wanted to eat. Renee moved through the crowd accepting condolences, her social autopilot engaged while her mind remained numb. "He looked just like you," an elderly neighbor said, patting her hand. "Those same expressive eyes." "Such potential," said his principal. "We were certain he'd get that scholarship." "If there's anything you need," everyone said, as if anything could fill the Liam-shaped hole in her world. As evening approached, the visitors gradually departed until only Dale remained, cleaning up the kitchen. "You should go home to Cindy and the kids," Renee told him. "I'll be okay." Dale hesitated. "I don't think you should be alone tonight." "I need to be," she replied. "I need to process this. Somehow." After extracting a promise that she'd call if she needed anything, any time, Dale reluctantly left. The house fell into silence so profound it seemed to have weight. Renee wandered through the rooms, touching Liam's things. His backpack still hung on the hook by the door. His sneakers lay kicked off in the hallway. His bedroom remained exactly as he'd left it. Bed unmade, clothes scattered, textbooks stacked haphazardly on his desk. She sat on his bed, picking up the sweatshirt he'd worn last week. Holding it to her face, she breathed in deeply, catching the faint scent that was uniquely his. Only then did she allow herself to fully break down, sobs racking her body until she had no tears left to cry. Later, exhausted, Renee found herself looking through photo albums. Baby Liam with his toothless grin, 6-year-old Liam missing his front teeth, 12-year-old Liam with his first science fair trophy, last summer's camping trip, where he'd insisted on being the one to set up the tent and ended up collapsing it on both of them, leading to a laughing fit that had her sides hurting. Around midnight, she found herself staring at his phone. The police had returned it along with his wallet and watch, items that had been thrown clear of the wreckage. The screen was cracked but still functional. She knew his passcode. He'd shared it with her willingly, having nothing to hide. Scrolling through his messages felt like an invasion, yet also like a connection to his final hours. The last texts were to his friends, making plans for the weekend that would never come. Nothing unusual. Nothing that hinted at what was about to happen. His photo gallery held hundreds of images, selfies with friends, scenic shots from hikes, funny memes he'd saved. The most recent was taken just hours before the accident, a sunset over Ridge Road, the same road where he would later lose control of his car. Sleep eluded Renee that night. She moved between rooms, picking up objects tied to memories, then setting them down again. In the kitchen, she found a stack of college brochures they'd been planning to go through that weekend. In the living room, his guitar leaned against the wall, waiting for fingers that would never again coax music from its strings. Dawn found her at the kitchen table, clutching coffee gone cold, staring at nothing. The first day of the rest of her life without Liam stretched before her, endless and empty. The funeral director called mid-morning with paperwork questions. Then the insurance company. Then well-meaning friends checking in. Renee answered mechanically, saying the right things while feeling nothing. That afternoon, she forced herself to drive to the accident site. Police tape still fluttered from nearby trees. The guardrail Liam's car had crashed through remained bent and broken. Skid marks scarred the asphalt. A small memorial of flowers and candles had already begun forming. Renee stood at the edge of the road, staring down the steep embankment where twisted metal had been removed just days before. What had happened in those final moments? Had Liam been scared? Had he suffered? The police said death would have been instantaneous, but was that just something they told parents to ease their pain? A light rain began falling again as she placed a single white rose among the other tributes. "I love you, Liam," she whispered. "I'll always love you." Driving home, Renee passed Liam's school. Students had created a memorial wall covered with photos, notes, and mementos. She didn't stop. She couldn't face their grief on top of her own. That night, she finally slept, collapsing from sheer exhaustion. Her dreams were mercifully empty. But morning brought no relief. Only the crushing realization that yesterday hadn't been a nightmare. This was her reality now. A world without her son. As days turned into weeks, Renee went through the motions of living. She returned to work at the library. She accepted invitations to dinner. She smiled when appropriate and answered, "I'm doing okay," when asked. But inside she felt hollow. Little did she know that 1 year later, everything she believed about that rainy day at Pine Grove Cemetery would be called into question. That the closed casket harbored secrets deeper than grief. That the story of Liam's death was far from over. 11 months had passed since the funeral. Almost a year without Liam. Renee had settled into a routine that helped her function day to day. Wake up, go to work at the library, come home, eat something simple, sleep, repeat. The grief counselor called it surviving, not living, but Renee didn't care much for labels. She was doing what she could. Her house remained largely unchanged since that rainy day, though she'd finally managed to wash Liam's bedsheets and put away some of his things. His room was still his room, door often closed as if preserving what remained of him inside. It was a Tuesday evening in late autumn when the first strange thing happened. Renee was washing dishes, the TV murmuring in the background when the lights flickered. Nothing unusual. The old wiring in the house often protested during storms. But there was no storm that night. Just as she noticed this, the radio on the counter, a radio she hadn't turned on, suddenly blared to life. The song playing was Telescope by an indie band Liam had loved, but Renee had never particularly cared for. She stared at the radio, dish soap dripping from her frozen hands. Liam used to play this song constantly, singing along off-key just to annoy her. With shaking fingers, she turned the radio off. A power surge, she told herself. Nothing more. 2 days later, she found Liam's astronomy textbook open on the kitchen table when she came downstairs for breakfast. The page displayed a chapter about distant galaxies, with a sticky note marking a paragraph about how light from stars takes years to reach Earth, so we're always looking into the past. Renee couldn't remember taking the book from his room. Had she sleepwalked? Was grief playing tricks on her mind? But the incidents kept coming. His favorite coffee mug, the one with constellations that changed when hot liquid was poured in, appeared on the counter one morning, though she'd packed it away in a box in the attic. His basketball shorts ended up in the laundry hamper. The shower radio played his playlist. "You're just tired," Dale told her when she hesitantly mentioned these occurrences. Grief does strange things to the mind. Renee wanted to believe him. The alternative, that she was losing her grip on reality, frightened her. Then came the dreams. Not the expected dreams of memories or of Liam alive and well. These were different. In them Liam appeared, but always in strange clinical surroundings. He looked confused, sometimes scared, and he always said the same thing. "Mom, that's not me in the ground." The dreams came 3 nights in a row, leaving Renee gasping awake, heart pounding. By the 4th night, she dreaded sleep. The following day, Renee found herself pulling into the cemetery without having consciously decided to go there. She hadn't visited in nearly 2 months. It was too painful. But today, something pulled her there. Liam's grave looked the same. The headstone they'd chosen together, simple with a small etching of a telescope in one corner, stood solid and unmoving. The ground before it was flat, undisturbed. What had she expected? For the earth to have somehow revealed that it was empty? "You're being ridiculous," she muttered to herself, placing fresh flowers by the stone. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed with a text message. "Unknown number. Remember the attic window that wouldn't close all the way? Fixed it last summer but never told you." Renee froze. The attic window had indeed been stuck for years, and last summer it had mysteriously started working again. Liam had never mentioned fixing it. She'd assumed the frame had finally settled correctly. Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply came. That night, unable to sleep, Renee climbed to the attic and examined the window. It opened and closed smoothly. In the corner of the frame, barely visible, were initials carved with a pocket knife. L.H. Liam Hudson. Something broke inside Renee. Not the fragile shell she'd built around her grief, but the acceptance of what had happened. For the first time, she allowed herself to question, what if? The next morning, she called in sick to work and drove to the police station. Officer Taylor, who had handled Liam's accident, was sympathetic but firm. "Mrs. Hudson, I understand grief can make us look for answers, for hope," he said gently, "but I was at the scene that night. The car was completely destroyed. The dental records confirmed it was Liam. Could there have been a mistake?" Renee pressed. "Was there DNA testing?" Officer Taylor looked uncomfortable. Given the condition of the remains and the dental match, DNA wasn't deemed necessary. "Listen, have you thought about talking to someone? Grief counseling can really help with these feelings." Renee left feeling dismissed but not deterred. If the police wouldn't help, she would have to find answers herself. She started with the accident report, which she'd never had the strength to read before. The dry, clinical language described how Liam's car had gone off Ridge Road at approximately 11:20 p.m., crashed through the guardrail, rolled down the embankment, and caught fire upon impact. A truck driver had reported the blaze. By the time emergency services arrived, the vehicle was fully engulfed. One detail caught her eye. Driver presumed to have been ejected from vehicle during rollover. Remains recovered approximately 15 yards from vehicle. If Liam had been thrown from the car, why was the body so damaged that an open casket wasn't possible? Burns from the fire, perhaps. But something didn't add up. Renee next visited Dr. Powell, the dentist who had provided Liam's dental records for identification. The receptionist seemed uncomfortable when Renee asked about the records request from last year. "Dr. Powell is with a patient," she said, "but I remember that request. It came through officially from the county medical examiner." "And you're sure they were Liam's records that were sent?" Renee asked. The receptionist hesitated. I pulled them myself. At least I think I did. It was a hectic day. We had a pipe burst in the back office that morning. Everything was chaos. That night, Renee received another text from the unknown number. "Check the treehouse. Bottom board left corner." The treehouse, a simple platform Renee's husband had built in the backyard oak tree years ago. Liam had outgrown it by 13, but still occasionally climbed up there to stargaze. With a flashlight between her teeth, Renee climbed the wooden slats nailed to the trunk. The platform was dusty, leaves collected in the corners. She examined the floorboards, finding the left corner just as the text had instructed. One board was loose. Beneath it was a small metal box, Liam's treasure chest from when he was younger. Inside, she found his real student ID card, a flash drive, and a folded note in his handwriting. "If anything happens to me, the truth is here." Hands shaking, Renee plugged the flash drive into her laptop. It contained a video file dated the night of the accident. She clicked play. Liam's face filled the screen, his expression serious. "Mom, if you're watching this, something's gone wrong. I saw something I shouldn't have tonight at the old warehouse by Ridge Road. 2 men in suits meeting with Mr. Vaughn. You know, my science teacher. They had guns, Mom, and I think they saw me. I'm leaving now to stay with Trey for a few days until I figure out what to do. Don't worry, I'll be careful. I love you." The video ended. Renee sat stunned, mind racing. Mr. Vaughn, the chemistry teacher Liam had admired so much, had spoken at his funeral, had seemed genuinely grief-stricken. The next text came just before midnight. "Not safe to talk this way. Go to Westlake Hospital tomorrow. Ask for patient 317. Bring photo ID." Renee barely slept. At dawn, she called Dale. "I need you to come over. There's something I have to show you." Dale arrived, looking worried. "What's going on? You sounded strange on the phone." Renee showed him everything, the texts, the video, the note. Dale's expression changed from concern to shock to skepticism. "Renee, I don't know what this is, but you need to be careful. If what Liam recorded is real, these could be dangerous people." "I have to go to Westlake Hospital," she said firmly. "Will you come with me?" Westlake was a private facility about 40 miles away. At the reception desk, Renee took a deep breath. "I'm here to see patient 317. The receptionist looked up sharply. "Are you family?" "I'm his mother," Renee said, heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. After checking Renee's ID thoroughly, the receptionist made a phone call, speaking too quietly to overhear. Finally, she nodded. "6th floor. The doctor will meet you there." The elevator ride felt endless. Dale squeezed her hand as the doors opened onto a quiet corridor. A woman in a white coat approached them. "Mrs. Hudson, I'm Dr. Chen. I understand you're here about our John Doe patient." "John Doe?" Renee repeated. The text said patient 317. Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's correct. He was brought in almost a year ago with severe injuries and no identification. He's been in and out of consciousness for months. Recently, he's been asking for someone who matches your description, but he couldn't remember names or contact information." "Can I see him?" Renee whispered. "I should prepare you," Dr. Chen said gently. "He's had extensive facial reconstruction. He won't look like you remember, and his memory is still fragmented." They stopped outside room 317. Through the small window in the door, Renee could see a young man sitting in a chair by the window, his back to them. His hair was different, shorter, darker. His posture familiar yet strange. Dr. Chen opened the door. "You have visitors." The young man turned. Renee gasped. The face was different. Jaw shape altered, nose reshaped, scars still visible along the hairline. But the eyes, those were Liam's eyes looking back at her with a mixture of fear and hope. "Mom," he said, voice cracking. Something in Renee recognized him instantly beyond the physical changes. This was her son, somehow impossibly alive. "Liam," she breathed, rushing forward as the world tilted beneath her feet. The hospital room fell away as Renee embraced her son. Her mind couldn't process what her heart already knew. This was Liam, somehow alive nearly a year after she had buried him. The face was different, the voice slightly changed, but the way he held her was unmistakable. "How?" she whispered, pulling back to look at him again. I don't understand. We buried you. There was a funeral. Liam's eyes, the one feature that remained unchanged, filled with tears. I don't know everything yet. My memory. It comes in pieces, like a puzzle with half the parts missing. Dr. Chen cleared her throat gently. Perhaps I can fill in some gaps. Liam, though we've known him as patient 317 until now, was brought in by ambulance last November with severe trauma. A good Samaritan found him unconscious on a back road about 50 miles from here. Dale stood frozen by the door, his face pale with shock. This isn't possible, he muttered. I thought the same when I first got the texts, Renee said, still holding on to Liam's hand as if he might vanish if she let go. But deep down, I felt something wasn't right about the accident. Dr. Chen pulled up Liam's charts on a tablet. He arrived with multiple fractures, severe facial trauma, and a traumatic brain injury. He was in a coma for nearly 2 months. When he woke, he had no memory of who he was or how he'd been injured. The facial reconstruction was necessary due to the extent of the damage. They wanted me unrecognizable, Liam said quietly. Who did? Dale asked, finally approaching the bed. The men from the warehouse, Mr. Vaughn's associates. Liam's brow furrowed with the effort of remembering. I was hiding in the rafters doing astronomy homework. I go there sometimes, went there because it's dark, away from the town lights. Good for stargazing. Renee remembered his telescope, how often he'd disappear with it on clear nights. They came in with a truck. 3 men in suits and Mr. Vaughn. They were unloading crates. I couldn't see what was inside, but they were arguing about money. One of them mentioned a shipment to Boston, and Vaughn said something about chemical compounds being unstable. Liam's hands began to shake. My phone slipped from my pocket. The noise. They saw me. I ran to my car. And they caused your accident, Renee guessed, horror creeping through her. Liam shook his head. Not exactly. I drove away fast, too fast. The road was wet from earlier rain. I took a curve wrong and crashed through the guardrail. But I wasn't thrown from the car like the report said. I managed to crawl out before it caught fire. I was hurt but alive. Then how? Dale began. I heard their car stop. They were coming down the embankment. I dragged myself into the woods. I remember one of them saying, the kid's dead for sure. Another said, we need to be certain. No loose ends. Then everything goes blank. My next clear memory is waking up here, face bandaged, months later. Dr. Chen interjected. The brain often blocks traumatic memories as a protection mechanism. Fragments may return over time, but some gaps might remain permanent. Renee's mind was racing. But who was buried in your place? The dental records matched. That's what we need to find out, Dale said, his initial shock giving way to determination. Someone faked Liam's death, which means they had access to official channels, police, medical examiner, maybe even someone at the dental office. Someone wanted the world to believe I was dead, Liam said, and went to elaborate lengths to make it happen. Dr. Chen looked troubled. I should mention something else. When Liam first arrived, his medical expenses were covered by an anonymous donor. We assumed it was a charitable organization, as sometimes happens with John Doe patients. Now I wonder if someone was keeping tabs on him. A chill ran through Renee. We need to be careful. If they discover Liam is in contact with me, that's why I used burner phones to text you, Liam explained. One of the night nurses, Artie, has been helping me. He thought something was fishy about my situation from the beginning. He brought me the phones, helped me do some research when I started remembering bits and pieces. We should take this to the FBI, Dale suggested. Local police might be compromised. Liam's face darkened with fear. No, not yet. We don't know how far this goes. We need proof first. The video on your flash drive, Renee remembered. That's a start. It won't be enough, Liam said. We need to know who was really buried in that grave. The words hung in the air, their implication clear. Renee felt lightheaded at the thought, but steeled herself. Then we need to get that grave exhumed. The next 2 weeks were a blur of careful planning. Liam remained at Westlake Hospital, where Dr. Chen kept his identity confidential, listing him still as a John Doe while continuing his recovery therapy. Renee visited daily, often bringing old photos and mementos to help jog his memory. Dale, who worked as a construction project manager, took time off to help. His first step was hiring Kay Fletcher, a private investigator recommended by a trusted friend. They met in a coffee shop 2 towns over to avoid being recognized. "Let me get this straight," Kay said after hearing their story. "You believe someone faked your nephew's death, buried someone or something else in his place, and the local authorities either were fooled or are in on it?" "I know how it sounds," Dale admitted. "But we have proof Liam is alive. What we need is to find out who helped fake his death and why." Kay tapped her pen against her notebook. "Start with the weakest link. Who had access to the dental records used for identification?" Following this advice, Dale and Renee began investigating the dental office. They discovered that a temporary receptionist had been working the day the medical examiner requested Liam's records, a woman who had only worked there for a week and left shortly after. "No forwarding address. Paid in cash," the office manager told them when Dale posed as a former patient trying to find her. "Said her name was Veronica Mills, but the social security number she gave us turned out to be fake. We reported it after she disappeared." Meanwhile, Kay dug into Mr. Vaughn's background. The chemistry teacher had impeccable credentials on paper, degrees from prestigious universities, glowing recommendations, no criminal record. But she found troubling gaps in his employment history and evidence that some of his credentials had been fabricated. "He's not who he claims to be," Kay told them during a secure video call, "and he's been making regular trips to a warehouse property owned by a shell company. I followed him there yesterday, took some long-range photos of him meeting with 2 men in expensive suits. The same warehouse Liam mentioned," Renee said, her suspicions confirmed. Kay nodded. "I ran the plates on their car. Registered to Northlake Pharmaceutical Research, a private company with government contracts. Very hush-hush stuff." The pieces were falling into place, but they still needed definitive proof. Renee filed a formal request with the county to have Liam's grave exhumed, citing new evidence suggesting a potential misidentification. The request was initially denied. The county cited insufficient grounds and respect for the deceased. But Renee persisted, leveraging a connection through Dale with a judge who owed him a favor from a previous construction project. "I can't promise anything," Judge Wilson told them during a private meeting in his chambers. "But if you can provide affidavits from medical professionals suggesting legitimate doubt about the identification, I might be able to help." Dr. Chen provided a carefully worded statement indicating she was treating a patient with injuries and identifiers consistent with Liam Hudson, though she stopped short of definitively claiming it was him. A forensic pathologist Kay knew reviewed the accident report and noted several inconsistencies in the description of the recovered remains. 2 weeks and 3 court appearances later, Judge Wilson granted the exhumation order. The procedure was scheduled for the following Monday at dawn, to be conducted with minimal personnel, just the cemetery caretaker, a county medical examiner, and a police representative. "I don't trust the local police," Renee worried as she and Dale prepared for the exhumation. "Judge Wilson is sending a state trooper instead," Dale assured her, "someone from outside the county who has no connection to the original case." The night before the exhumation, Renee couldn't sleep. She paced her living room until dawn, wondering what they would find. Would the grave contain an unidentified body, someone else who had died that night, a victim of Vaughn and his associates? Or would it contain something else entirely? She arrived at the cemetery as the sun was rising, mist still clinging to the gravestones. Dale was already there, along with Kay, the medical examiner Dr. Rossi, State Trooper Mendez, and 2 cemetery workers with shovels and equipment. "Mrs. Hudson," Dr. Rossi greeted her somberly, "I want to prepare you. This process can be difficult emotionally regardless of what we find." Renee nodded, too tense to speak. She watched as the workers carefully removed the layers of earth above Liam's casket. It took nearly 2 hours before they reached it and secured straps underneath to lift it from the ground. The casket was placed on a tarp-covered table brought for the purpose. Dr. Rossi stepped forward with tools to open it while Trooper Mendez recorded the procedure on an official camera. "Ready?" Dr. Rossi asked, looking at Renee. She took a deep breath and nodded. The seals on the casket were broken. The lid was slowly raised. Everyone fell silent. Inside was not a body at all, but a carefully arranged set of weighted medical training mannequin parts dressed in clothing similar to what Liam had supposedly been buried in. Packets of a dense material, later identified as theatrical ballast used in movie stunts, had been added to approximate human weight. What the hell? Trooper Mendez whispered, lowering his camera in shock. Dr. Rossi looked stunned. In 20 years, I've never seen anything like this. Renee felt a strange mix of relief and fury. Relief that no innocent person had died in Liam's place. Fury at the elaborate deception that had caused her nearly a year of grieving. We need to document everything, Kay said, breaking the silence. Photos, samples, measurements. This is evidence of a criminal conspiracy. As they carefully cataloged the contents, Renee stepped away, pulling out her phone to call the secure line to Liam's hospital room. Her hands were shaking as Artie, the night nurse, answered. He needs to know, she said, voice unsteady with emotion. Tell him the grave was empty. It was all staged. And tell him we're going to make this right. As she ended the call, Dale approached, his expression grim. Renee, Kay just got a text from her contact at the state police. Mr. Vaughn has disappeared. His house was found empty this morning. He's in the wind. Renee looked back at the open casket, at the elaborate fake that had caused her so much pain. He can run, she said quietly. But now we have proof, and we're going to find him. News of the empty grave spread quickly despite attempts to keep it quiet. By afternoon, local reporters gathered outside Renee's house, hungry for details about the shocking discovery. Trooper Mendez stationed herself on the porch, keeping them at bay while inside. Renee, Dale, and Kay met with FBI agent Lopez, who had driven in from the regional office. So you're telling me, Agent Lopez said, reviewing her notes, that your son witnessed something at a warehouse, had an accident, and then someone, presumably this chemistry teacher and his associates, faked his death and arranged for facial reconstruction surgery to make him unrecognizable? I know how it sounds, Renee replied, too exhausted for defensiveness. But the evidence is there. The empty grave. Liam alive at Westlake Hospital. The video he recorded before his accident. Agent Lopez nodded slowly. The Bureau has actually had Northlake Pharmaceutical on our radar for some time, suspected of manufacturing controlled substances under the guise of medical research. Your son may have stumbled onto something bigger than a high school chemistry teacher selling drugs. What about Mr. Vaughn? Dale asked. Real name likely Preston Walker, Agent Lopez said, sliding a photo across the table. Former chemical engineer with a defense contractor. Disappeared 5 years ago after questions arose about missing materials from a government lab. We believe he's been working for Northlake under the Vaughn identity since then. Renee stared at the photo. The man she knew as her son's dedicated teacher, who had spoken at his funeral with seemingly genuine tears, was actually a fugitive scientist working for some shadowy organization. Why go to such lengths? She wondered aloud. Why not just... She couldn't finish the sentence. Agent Lopez's expression softened slightly. If what your son witnessed was significant enough, killing him outright might have raised too many questions. A tragic accident, however. That closes the book neatly. And keeping him alive but unrecognizable suggests they might have needed him for something. But what? Dale asked. That's what we need to find out, the agent replied. And for that, we need your son's full cooperation. He's still recovering, Renee protested. His memory comes and goes. I understand, Agent Lopez said. But the longer we wait, the colder this trail gets. Walker, or Vaughn, has already disappeared. His associates won't be far behind. After further discussion, they agreed to a plan. Agent Lopez would send a team to secure Liam at Westlake Hospital and transport him to a safe location. Meanwhile, a forensic team would process the contents of the false grave for any evidence that might point to who had arranged the deception. As the meeting concluded, Renee's phone rang, Dr. Chen calling from Westlake. Mrs. Hudson, the doctor said, her voice tight with concern. 2 men claiming to be from the insurance company tried to access Liam's room 10 minutes ago. When asked for proper identification, they left quickly. Hospital security has the incident on camera. Renee felt ice in her veins. Is Liam safe? For now. We've moved him to a different floor and posted security, but I don't think the hospital is secure enough if these people are determined. Agent Lopez, overhearing, immediately made calls to dispatch agents to the hospital. We need to move him now, she said, already heading for the door. Mrs. Hudson, you'll come with me. Mr. Hudson, stay here with the trooper in case they come looking. The drive to Westlake was tense, with Agent Lopez weaving through traffic while coordinating with her team via hands-free phone. Renee gripped the door handle, trying to keep her rising panic at bay. We'll get there in time, Agent Lopez assured her, reading her expression. I've got agents already en route from a closer field office. They arrived to find the hospital in a controlled flurry of activity. 2 FBI agents already stood outside the service elevator on the 3rd floor, where Liam had been temporarily relocated. Dr. Chen met them, looking harried. Those men came back with what looked like legitimate FBI credentials, she explained as they hurried down the hall. But something felt off. I called the number on the card they gave me and it went to a disconnected line. You did exactly right, Agent Lopez said. Where is he now? Supply closet at the end of this hallway. My most trusted nurse is with him. They found Liam sitting on a folding chair between shelves of medical supplies, the night nurse Artie standing guard by the door. Despite the situation, Liam's face lit up when he saw his mother. Mom, he said, rising unsteadily. What's happening? We need to move you somewhere safer, Renee explained, embracing him. The men who did this to you know you're alive. Within 15 minutes, they had Liam secured in an FBI transport vehicle, headed for a safe house 2 counties over. Renee sat beside him in the back while Agent Lopez rode up front with another agent. 2 more vehicles, one ahead, one behind, completed their small convoy. The exhumation? Liam asked quietly. What did you find? No body, Renee told him. Just weighted medical dummies dressed in clothes like yours. An elaborate fake. Liam absorbed this information silently. So nobody died in my place. That's something at least. The grave isn't the only evidence, Agent Lopez said from the front seat. We found something interesting when we searched Vaughn's residence after he disappeared. A hidden room with what appears to be a small lab setup. What was he making there? Liam asked. Our preliminary analysis suggests compounds used in memory-altering drugs. Experimental stuff, not approved for human use. Some of the same compounds were found in your blood work when you first arrived at Westlake, though in trace amounts by that time. Liam's hand went instinctively to his head. They drugged me to make me forget. It appears so, Agent Lopez confirmed. Which makes your testimony even more crucial. Whatever you saw that night must have been significant enough to go to these extremes. The safe house was a modest cabin on a wooded property owned by the Bureau. As they settled in, agents secured the perimeter while Agent Lopez set up recording equipment to take Liam's full statement. Start from the beginning, she instructed. Even small details might be important. Liam closed his eyes, concentrating. I'd gone to the old Riverside warehouse to stargaze. It's abandoned, has a partial roof, good sightlines to the northern sky. I was tracking a comet that night. As he spoke, Renee watched his face, still strange to her in its new configuration, yet with expressions so familiar they made her heart ache. His hands moved as he talked, just as they always had when he was explaining something complicated. I heard vehicles approaching around 10:30. I hid in the rafters with my telescope and notebook. 4 men entered, Mr. Vaughn and 3 others in suits. They were unloading crates from a truck. I couldn't see everything, but I heard them arguing about quality control and something called Compound NX7. One man said it was unstable for transport. But another said the Boston buyers won't wait. Agent Lopez nodded encouragingly. This aligns with what we know about Northlake. Go on. Mr. Vaughn seemed nervous. He kept checking his phone. Said something about tolerance issues in the test subjects. The oldest man, gray hair, expensive watch, told him the memory suppression aspects were more important than minor side effects. Renee felt a chill. Memory suppression. The pieces were fitting together. Then my phone slipped from my pocket. It hit a metal beam on the way down, made a huge noise. They all looked up. I ran. Made it to my car, but they followed. The rain made the roads slick. I took the curve too fast and crashed. Liam's breathing quickened as the memories surfaced. I crawled away from the car. Hid in the trees. They came down to check. One of them said, if he's not dead, he will be soon. Another said, when we need to be certain. Then I heard another car arrive. More voices. Someone found me. A needle in my arm. Then nothing until I woke up at Westlake. The hospital records show you were brought in by ambulance after an anonymous 911 call, Agent Lopez noted. Caller reported finding an injured young man on a back road miles from your accident site. They must have moved me, Liam said. But why keep me alive? Why the facial reconstruction? Agent Lopez looked grim. Based on what we know about Northlake and the compounds Walker was working with, my theory is you became an unwitting test subject. The facial reconstruction would ensure no one recognized you if you ever regained mobility and awareness. The memory-suppressing drugs would theoretically prevent you from remembering what you'd seen. But the drugs didn't work completely, Renee said. He started remembering. The brain is resilient, Agent Lopez agreed, especially in someone young. And it appears they underestimated the connection between mother and son. Even altered, you found your way back to each other. As evening fell, more agents arrived with equipment and supplies. The plan was to keep Liam secured while building a case against Northlake Pharmaceutical and tracking down Walker and his associates. After a simple dinner, Renee found Liam sitting on the cabin's small porch, looking up at the stars. "Astronomy homework," he said with a faint smile as she joined him. "That's what started all this. Just me and my telescope in the wrong place at the wrong time." Renee put her arm around his shoulders. Though his body felt different, thinner, the shoulders reshaped, the way he leaned against her was achingly familiar. "When I thought you were gone," she said quietly, "it was like the world lost all its color. Now it's like everything is in focus again, even with all this craziness happening around us." "I'm sorry for what you went through," Liam whispered. "All those months thinking I was dead. It wasn't your fault," she assured him. "And we're going to make sure the people responsible pay for what they did." Inside, they could hear Agent Lopez on the phone, her voice rising with excitement. When she ended the call, she came to the porch, her typically composed face animated. "We just got a break," she announced. Boston PD picked up one of Northlake's couriers with a shipment of what appears to be the same compound mentioned in Liam's testimony. "And he's willing to talk in exchange for consideration." "What did he say?" Renee asked. "Enough to get us warrants for Northlake's main facility. Teams are moving in now." Agent Lopez looked at Liam. "Your testimony, combined with what we find there, could bring down their entire operation." A light rain began to fall, pattering on the cabin roof. To Renee, it sounded nothing like the rain at the funeral nearly a year ago. That rain had felt like an ending. This rain felt like a beginning. "What happens next?" Liam asked. "We keep you safe while the investigation proceeds," Agent Lopez replied. "And we prepare for the possibility of a trial where your testimony will be crucial." "And after that?" Renee wondered. Agent Lopez's expression softened slightly. "One step at a time. But whatever happens, you've already done the impossible. You found each other again when everything was designed to keep you apart." Later that night, as Liam slept in the cabin's small bedroom, Renee sat by the window, watching agents patrol the perimeter. The path ahead would be difficult and dangerous. But after months of grieving a son who wasn't dead, after discovering a conspiracy that had nearly destroyed her family, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel again: hope. 3 months had passed since the discovery of the empty grave. Spring had arrived, bringing with it a sense of renewal that felt appropriate to Renee as she sat in the back of the courtroom, watching as the prosecution presented their case against the executives of Northlake Pharmaceutical. The FBI raid on Northlake's facilities had yielded mountains of evidence: illegal compounds, falsified research data, and most damning of all, records of human testing conducted without consent. The company's glossy exterior had hidden a criminal enterprise developing memory-altering drugs for both military applications and the black market. Today was Liam's day to testify. Renee watched her son approach the witness stand, walking with just the hint of a limp, a lingering reminder of his injuries. His face was still not the one she had known for 16 years, but she had grown accustomed to its new angles and planes. What mattered was that he was alive, and today, he would help bring his tormentors to justice. Liam was sworn in, his voice steady as he promised to tell the truth. The lead prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Attorney Winters, approached. "Mr. Hudson, can you tell the court what happened on the night of November 15th last year?" Liam recounted the story he had told so many times now, to the FBI, to the grand jury, and in numerous depositions. How he had gone to the abandoned Riverside warehouse to stargaze. How he had witnessed the meeting between his chemistry teacher, Mr. Vaughn, now known to be Preston Walker, and representatives from Northlake Pharmaceutical. How they had discussed compound NX7 and its memory-suppressing properties. "After my car crashed," Liam continued, "I remember being found in the woods. Someone injected me with something. My next clear memory is waking up at Westlake Hospital months later. with a different face and no memory of who I was. Attorney Winters displayed photographs of Liam before and after the facial reconstruction surgery. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. And during your recovery, did your memories gradually return? Yes, Liam nodded. First in dreams, then in fragments during the day. I remembered my mom, but not her name or how to find her. One of the nurses, Artie, helped me search online using details I could remember about our house and neighborhood. When I saw her picture in a news article about my funeral, everything started coming back faster. In the defendant's section, 3 Northlake executives sat stone-faced. Their ringleader, Gregory Richardson, watched Liam with cold calculation. The man who had ordered Liam's disappearance and subsequent facial reconstruction showed no remorse. Preston Walker, the man Liam had known as Mr. Vaughn, was notably absent. Despite an international manhunt, he remained at large, presumed to have fled the country with the help of foreign connections interested in his chemical expertise. During cross-examination, the defense attorney tried to undermine Liam's testimony by questioning his memory. Mr. Hudson, you've admitted that you were subjected to memory-altering drugs. How can you be certain that what you're remembering now is accurate? Liam didn't flinch. The drugs didn't erase my memories, they just buried them. And the physical evidence backs up everything I've testified to. The empty grave. The warehouse where I was found. The records from Northlake's own labs showing they had me as Subject 317. My memories align perfectly with the facts you can't dispute. When Liam stepped down from the witness stand, he looked exhausted but relieved. Renee squeezed his hand as he rejoined her. You did great, she whispered. The trial continued for another 2 weeks with testimony from FBI agents, medical experts, and a former Northlake scientist who had turned state's evidence. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts: conspiracy, kidnapping, illegal human experimentation, and dozens of other charges. At the sentencing hearing, Richardson and his associates received decades in prison. The judge addressed Liam directly before delivering the sentences. Young man, your courage in testifying despite the trauma you endured has ensured these individuals can harm no one else. Society owes you a debt of gratitude. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Agent Lopez ran interference, allowing Renee and Liam to slip away to a waiting car where Dale was behind the wheel. It's really over, Liam said as they pulled away from the courthouse. This chapter is, Agent Lopez replied from the front passenger seat. But there's still the matter of witness protection to discuss back at Renee's house, which had remained under FBI surveillance throughout the trial. They gathered in the living room to discuss next steps. Walker is still out there, Agent Lopez reminded them, and he has connections we haven't been able to identify yet. Until he's apprehended, you both remain at risk. Renee had known this was coming, had prepared herself for it, but the reality still felt like a punch to the gut. So we disappear. New names, new location. New faces in my case, Liam added with a hint of gallows humor, touching his reconstructed features. Though I guess I've had practice with that part. Agent Lopez opened a folder containing their new identities and the details of their relocation. We've arranged for you to move to the Pacific Northwest. Small coastal town, nice community, good school for Liam. Your new home is ready whenever you are. What about me? Dale asked. I'm family too. We can arrange protection for you as well, Agent Lopez assured him. Though you would need to be settled separately. Too many family members relocating together increases the risk of your identities being discovered. Dale nodded, though his disappointment was evident. I understand. Safety first. They spent the next week packing only what couldn't be replaced: photo albums, important mementos, a few cherished possessions. Everything else would be sold or put in storage. Their new life came with a fully furnished home and all the necessities. The night before their departure, Renee found Liam in his old bedroom, sitting on the floor surrounded by star charts and astronomy books. Packing the essentials? She asked, sitting beside him. Some of these were my dad's, he said, carefully rolling a vintage star map. Can't leave them behind. Renee picked up a framed photo of her late husband holding a toddler Liam on his shoulders. He would be so proud of you. Standing up to those people, testifying even though it was scary. Do you think we'll ever come back? Liam asked, looking around the room that had been his sanctuary for most of his life. I don't know, Renee answered honestly. But home isn't really about the place, is it? We learned that the hard way this past year. Liam nodded, understanding. Home is us, together, doesn't matter where. The following morning, Agent Lopez arrived with 2 other agents and a nondescript SUV with tinted windows. Their luggage was loaded quietly while neighbors were still asleep. No goodbyes, no forwarding address, just a clean break to ensure their safety. Dale arrived to see them off, giving Liam a long hug. "I'll come visit when it's safe," he promised. "Agent Lopez says maybe in 6 months once you're settled and if there's no sign of Walker." Renee embraced her brother-in-law, fighting tears. "Thank you. For everything. We wouldn't have found Liam without your help." "Family helps family," Dale said simply. "Always." As they drove away from the only home Liam had ever known, Renee watched her son stare out the window, memorizing the streets and houses of their neighborhood one last time. His face, the new face that had initially seemed so foreign to her, was contemplative but not sad. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," he replied. "I was just thinking about how different everything is from a year ago. Back then I was just a kid who liked stars. Now I'm a kid with a different face who has to hide from a criminal scientist." Despite everything, Renee found herself laughing. "When you put it that way?" Liam grinned, and in that smile, Renee saw her son completely, regardless of the changed features around it. At least we're not boring. Their new home was indeed in a small coastal town, the kind of place where fog rolled in from the ocean each morning, and the air smelled of salt and pine. Their house sat on a bluff overlooking the water, with a backyard that backed up to a forest of towering trees. Perfect for privacy, perfect for stargazing. They arrived at dusk, following Agent Lopez up the gravel driveway to a charming 2-story cottage with blue shutters and a wide porch. "Welcome home, Mr. and Mrs. Coleman," Agent Lopez said, using their new surnames as she handed over the keys. Inside, the house was warm and welcoming with comfortable furniture and fully stocked cupboards. Large windows faced the ocean, capturing the last glow of sunset over the water. "Not bad for a witness protection setup," Liam remarked, exploring the rooms. He called down from upstairs, excitement in his voice. "Mom, there's a telescope in my room." "A really good one." Agent Lopez smiled at Renee's questioning look. "I might have mentioned his hobby to the relocation team. The back deck has an excellent view of the night sky. Very little light pollution out here." After a brief orientation to the house and the town, Agent Lopez prepared to leave. "I'll check in regularly through secure channels. You have the emergency contact procedures. Local law enforcement has been briefed minimally that you're under federal protection, though they don't know the specifics." "What about school for Liam?" Renee asked. "All arranged. He starts next week. His transcripts show him as a transfer student with excellent grades, which according to his real records isn't far from the truth." As they stood on the porch watching Agent Lopez drive away, Renee felt a curious mixture of emotions: grief for the life they'd left behind, anxiety about the future, but also a surprising sense of possibility. "Want to try out that telescope?" she asked Liam. Later, as they stood on the deck beneath a vast canopy of stars, Renee watched her son adjust the new telescope with familiar expertise. His movements, his concentration, his excitement when he found what he was looking for, these were all unchanged from before. "Come look," he said, stepping aside so she could peer through the eyepiece. "That's Polaris, the North Star. No matter where we go, it's always in the same place in the sky. Sailors have used it to find their way home for thousands of years." Renee looked up from the telescope to her son's face, illuminated in the soft glow of starlight. A different face than the one she had known for 16 years, but with the same soul shining through. "We found our way home too," she said softly. Liam nodded, understanding her meaning perfectly, against all odds. Together they turned back to the stars. 2 people who had lost everything only to find what mattered most: each other. Their names were different now, their location changed, their appearances altered, but the essential truth remained. No disguise, no distance, no deception had been able to truly separate them. Somewhere in the world, Preston Walker remained at large. Perhaps one day they would face that threat again. But for tonight, under the eternal stars, they were simply a mother and son beginning again,